us because Bridget is student teaching in Kathryn's classroom, so she is teaching at Whitney Young in their transition program. Okay, good. So she has brilliant ideas about, you started the transition program there, and then how to make that work, as well as examples about how to write the goals and transition goals. So this will be very exciting information.
Thank you. So I'm Katie. I like to be called Katie. Kathryn, I felt like I needed to be very official. They were looking at any sort of documents on me. They want my birth name. So like she said, I do teach at Whitney Young right now. I started the transition program at Whitney Young. For those of you who don't know, transition is any of our students who are over age 18. We bring them into the transition program once they've completed all their academics and focus on life skills until they leave at age 22. So they're able to stay with us for an extra 4 years. Last year I did leave Whitney Young and I went to Easter Seals Therapeutic School for students with autism, and I created the transition program there. And so I kind of have a different, coming back into CPS now, I kind of have a different outlook and kind of some different ideas, and seeing the other side of things and how things can be carried out in the transition world outside of CPS. So I had a little bit of some new experiences last year, and I kind of brought that back into Whitney Young this year. I did get my transition specialist degree from UIC, so I completed the LBS2 program with that in Assistive Technology. So what I kind of have compiled here for you guys today, and I kind of wanted to get into some of the research. I don't like to hit people with research-based, you guys, I'm preaching to the choir. You know about best practices, and I don't want to be, trying to do too much of that, but just kind of present to you what I kind of came up with when I did my thesis on transition through getting my master's, and how I'm taking that now into my classroom at Whitney Young. So the first thing I put up here is Kohler's taxonomy for transition. So if you guys haven't heard too much about transition, Kohler and Morningstar are the big gurus of transition. So that's kind of where we go to get our big ideas, what really works, what are our evidence-based practices. So some of these big ideas are student-focused planning, so utilizing our students to see what they want to do. And sometimes we have students who have lower cognitive abilities who we think aren't able to express what they want to do. It's trying to really get to that student, utilizing the pictures, seeing what makes them happy, what makes them drive every day, that we can utilize to put into their plans, so that once they leave here and they're starting over with students, or sorry, with new teachers and new staff working with them who don't know about them, how can we best express that student's wants and needs. And also bringing them into the IEP. So something that I do with my students is they create a PowerPoint with their pictures of their job skills and what they do on the day-to-day, and then they come to their meeting and they'll present that PowerPoint. They'll just talk about what they see in the picture. Their reading skills aren't necessarily there to be reading off blurbs underneath their pictures, but they know exactly what they were doing when that picture was taken, so they can come in and they'll talk about what they were doing. It really lightens up the meetings, especially when you get into some of those IEP meetings that are, might be heavy hitters, where we've got a lot of parents, we might have advocates, we have, all of these people. It kind of brings it back into, this is about the student, and this is what they do every day, this is what makes them happy, and it kind of just drives it back to, we're always trying to focus on the student. Following that down to student development, that's what I'll be getting into, a lot of the life skills instruction, the career instruction, the assessments. How can we prepare the students to leave our school system so that they're best prepared to go into life in the real world and what their next placement is going to be. The interagency collaboration piece can be one of the harder pieces for us to carry out, because it does involve getting outsiders in open cases with our students to take them to that next level. It is hard in Chicago. There's a lot of need and not as much support there for especially the lower incidence population. So it's really about contacting as many agencies as you can and really preparing the families, which we'll get into in a minute. Because once that student leaves us, it's the family's responsibility to take them to that next level, to complete the paperwork, to get the funding, to set them up with that program. And once they're, the day before they turn 22, that next day, it kind of falls out of your hands. And it's really important that we have an agency lined up with that student, so when they leave, they're able to kind of carry that next step and guide the families as to what they're going to be doing once they leave. Program structure is another one. I feel like that kind of goes with the life skills instruction and kind of the instruction you embed into your program, just kind of building it for best success for the students. And then lastly, the family involvement. Like I said, it's most important that the families, they have to buy into wanting their students to continue on and go to a program. I've had so many families that say, like, it's okay, I just want them to stay at home, stay at home all day. And it's super heartbreaking, as a teacher being with these students, sometimes for 8 years, you have them from when they turn 14 until before they're 22. And you want them to be able to continue and grow as a student. So really getting buy-in from the family and just being there to support them as much as possible. Real quick, I just put up a few slides of some of the research that I did during my thesis. Person-centered planning, like I talked about, just really always bringing it back to what the student wants. So if the parent and the educator, the parent, and some other people at the table aren't agreeing, bring it back to what the student wants. We're always planning around what makes the student happy, what the student's interests are, and what their strengths would feed into in terms of what their program would look like. There's lots of research out there to back that the students who are likely to hold a job or likely to continue to a placement if they were more involved in setting their own goals and being a part of their own plan. Teaching self-determination kind of goes with that too, and I feel like it kind of goes along with what Edwin was saying too with the mentors. We have to mentor these students a lot of times. The families that we're working with in the urban setting, they might not get that self-determination piece at home. It's really important that we try to do what we can to empower the students to continue to teach them. For me, I always, because there wouldn't be so much of the day, and it's like, you're it, you're everything I need right here all day, to try to get them to go outside of what they're familiar with and advocate for themselves and ask for help and speak to people that they're not familiar with so they get used to that for their next setting. Again, with the family involvement, the research just shows it's an obvious thing that we all know if the families are not involved, the chance of them going on to their next placement is very low. So, and also really planning early. So before they're turning 18, before they're even getting into that transition program, we're writing those post-secondary goals. Make sure that we start that conversation. Some of these wait lists, we'll find that the parents do wait until they're 21, and now they're on a 3-year wait list to get into a program because they didn't start earlier. And we have so much time from, we can start transition planning when they get into high school, really get a jump on it so that they're not stuck, waiting at home for a long period of time. And then the life skills training, this is a big one for me. I really kind of develop everything that I do in my classroom and the programs that I've started at the 2 schools around the life skills training. What's accessible for the students, what's attainable for them. It has to be scaffolded at different levels because you are going to have a big variety of disability levels, and just really trying to play to their strengths and get them as prepared as possible to be independent when they leave the school system. So that's just a little bit about the data. I want to get into the IEP goal areas that, as a transition teacher, once the students do meet their academic requirements and they're going into the transition program, how we write the IEPs and kind of how we guide their learning once they're done with those academics. And because Whitney Young is still high school, they're still theoretically and evidence-based practice say that those students should be pulled out. They should be with their same age peers, and having 20-year-olds in gym class with 14-year-olds isn't age appropriate, and it's not really best practice. Right now, I try to just remember where we started, that we didn't have a transition program, and we had kids who were 14 years old hanging out with 21-year-olds in one classroom. So try to put that into perspective and take it, day by day, and remember, it's not where it needs to be yet, but it's getting there. So post-secondary employment is one of the goal areas. For the students, I work with a low incidence population. They're about moderate, mild cognitive level, some physical disabilities, some autism, a variety of disabilities. They are the highest level group that we have in our transition program. So when I'm working on post-secondary employment with them, we're doing a lot of in-school jobs. We really just tease out as much work that we can do within the school building and see if we can teach our students to do that. So really reaching out to colleagues and saying, what do you guys need help with? What can my students, provide you with for free labor? If there's things that need to be done, how can we work it out so that it's meaningful to the students and they're doing real life work? All the copies were made by my students in their vocational class, in their office skills class, so they were copied, collated, and stapled by our students, so I take pride in that, really like work. Post-secondary training, so for my students, that's a vocational type training, like I'm just talking about this, office skills type thing. That's a huge one that we do, that teaching that clerical piece. There's so many rote tasks that go along with that they love it. They love to do that, piece, same thing over and over, for 20 reps, and then they're good. They love that repetition. I think that's important when you can get, so many other people involved. And even, now I feel that because my students are offering their services to so many other teachers in the building, they know them. They know them by name. They say hi to them. It makes my students feel like they have a real job. They love it. They think, this is just the best. And everybody knows them by name, and it's great. Independent living skills. I'll get into a more in-depth lesson. I kind of put together a longer lesson plan and some visuals that you guys can take back to anybody that you might know in low incidence programs that might be able to use that. We focus a lot on household chores, cooking, cleaning, anything that's going to get them as independent as possible in the home. Because a lot of times, I'm sure this is the same with your students, my students get home and there's not somebody there with them. So how can they get themselves a snack, get themselves, going till mom or dad gets home, brother or sister, whoever it is, gets home to take them to the next day. Lastly, community-based instruction. And so that's a goal area that we put in. It's not required by transition, but it's so important, and it is an evidence-based practice to actually bring our students into the community, and it can be hard. I know there's always financial limitations to everything that happens in the school, so later I'll talk about some funding ideas and some grant ideas that you guys can utilize, hopefully, to make that community-based instruction possible. But it is, for me, a really big reward piece, too, for my students. They want to go to the community. They want to get out of the building, so utilizing that throughout the week. Okay, are we working for a trip to Target? Okay, so reminding everybody this is a group contingency to get everybody on board, and you'll find that the other students are telling the student who's not doing what they're doing, you got to do it. Like, don't you want to go to Target? I hear them, like, they're just repeating what I'm saying or Bridget's saying all day. So, yeah,
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm always okay. I'm still even after working on an idea. I don't. Okay. Did you make this, or is this how CPS does it?
So when I went to Easter Seals last year, I worked with Allie Donnelly, and she was the head of transition for CPS. She just left CPS and she went to Easter Seals, and now she's the head of transition for all the Easter Seals in this area. And this is how she taught us to do the IEP. So because the students are no longer in academic classes, it wouldn't make sense for me to put in a social studies goal or a science goal because they're not in that class. So when I pull up their schedule, it says, so each of these have a course code, and CPS is very specific about the programming of the students and what it needs to look like on the schedule. So these are called occupational sequences. So their schedule would be lined up with occupational sequence 1, occupational sequence 2, occupational sequence 3. And that's a newer thing in CPS. That just got started 2 years ago too. And later I have an email address of somebody you can contact if your school doesn't have the transition program started, if you're wondering who your transition specialist is. There's a group of people who their jobs are to reach out to the schools and help support them with implementing this OC sequence, they call it. And there is like support throughout the year too, where there's professional developments, usually once or twice a quarter, that they provide with this training manual. They've created like a very bare bones outline of what that would look like what an occupational sequence should look like. And then from there, we kind of adapt it as necessary for our students. So CPS it's very new to them with the Indicator 13 that came out a few years ago, and with the pressure on the transition plans and to meet that Indicator 13 checklist, things have kind of fast forward quickly over the last couple of years to get these transition programs in place. So they're not at every school. It's not, I don't think, a requirement right now from CPS, but they're working towards it and trying to provide as much support as possible. So these are the goal areas. Another one is financial literacy. If you guys, our students have 5 core classes, and then they'll go into maybe a physical education or something like that. The financial literacy piece, I don't specifically teach that, but that is another special ed course number that can be listed for life skills, and that could be for banking, you know, anything kind of like that, working with money, working with checks, that kind of instruction, which can also double into the independent living skills if you don't have the option to teach financial literacy, but that could be a fifth goal area as well.
And then, okay, because so vocational training is,
So when
like, I just don't understand how it's different from employment. Like,
Okay.
employment is more, like, let's say, first of all, like, you know, some schools have community spots that they go, so that would be, like, the employment, whereas vocational might be more, like,
maybe more like vocational tasks, work boxes.
so it's more
doing
like
things
discrete
that.
tasks.
It could be, depending on the level. But so when, for example, like at Easter Seals, I had a lot of students who were, they had very severe autism and they were lower cognitive level. They would work on vocational task boxes that might have been like real piecework. So they might have been putting together, like for example, folding, like taking a straight piece of paper, folding it into a piece of paper, putting it in the envelope, sealing the envelope, and then putting it in a box, like going like that, kind of like a three to four step task kind of thing. So when you pull down the IEPs, the areas under post-secondary are post-secondary employment, post-secondary education or training, so it'll be listed as education or training. Typically for a student who's in regular ed classes who's going to be transitioning to college or you know, placement like that, maybe a 2-year, 4-year college, you're going to be writing a post-secondary goal. Instead of about vocational training, you would be writing it about education. So maybe you might write it about advocating for their needs from their IEP once they get into college, or even earlier, maybe a freshman year, they research colleges that have the major they're interested in going to, or scholarships, things like that. So it kind of, the way that, I should have put an education up there as well, so post-secondary education or training. So for all of our low incidence students, we focus on the training piece, which brings it back to the vocational. But for general students here at IEPs, that's where we would write and focus on their education, like their actual education piece. So when they go to college, how are we going to help them be as independent as possible when they don't have someone like me chasing around their teachers, getting the tests that they didn't finish and whatnot. How are they going to make it, you know, from point A to point B? So that kind of thing, if that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, and employment would be then like,
So
how
like
we do like resume stuff.
Exactly,
Like
jobs like that. And for the students who are in the gen ed, what do they want to do if they don't know? That could be a career exploration goal where they go and research. If they have some big ideas, they could do. I've done interviews before where I've required them to interview somebody, do research, kind of make a write-up about it so that they can learn more, so that they have, by the next IEP year, a little bit more direction as to where they're going. And I should say I work with low incidence now, so this is kind of a low incidence focused transition presentation, but I did do resource for 3 years at Whitney Young, where all the students were fully included. And we pulled them out for maybe one research period a day or no periods a day, but still supported them within that setting. So I've kind of done both sides, like the highest and the lowest end of it in terms of ability levels. And they look very, very different in terms of, you know, what the IEPs are looking like and what the goals are looking like. Any other, did that seem to help a little bit?
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions so far? No? Then I'll keep going. So what I've done for each of those areas is just kind of list some employment skills. Like I said, this is more for like a cluster program or low incidence program of things that they can work on, and then I've included 1 or 2 goal examples afterwards, because I find that a lot of schools, my name will kind of get given out to other people at other schools who want to start a transition program and they're just not sure exactly what to work on or what their goals would look like and how they'd be different from academic goals. So personal information, I mean, this is a huge one. I really try to get all my students to know their name, address, birthday, phone number, and even like when we're doing job applications, like a reference. You know, I was thinking about that, like a mentor, when I tried to explain to the students who is somebody who helps you, who's somebody who looks up to you, who can you identify. It doesn't have to always be just your teacher, who in the building, you know, and I got a list, you know, this long of people that, some people I hadn't even worked with for 4 or 5 years, but they remembered them, you know, and so I thought that's a really important thing, and especially when when you're really trying to hit that home with the students who they don't understand that concept of mentor, but when you break it down into what that looks like, that they can identify someone who, yeah, I know who helped me. Oh yeah, I know who, when my locker's stuck and I'm just looking around and no one's around, who can I just go to their room and they're gonna come out and help me. And that's something that can be difficult to teach as, you know, as we get lower into the cognitive level. So just trying to think about ways you can really enhance that, even with pictures and visuals, even of the people that you know that they've been surrounded with, who's somebody you can identify as a reference. Like I said, in-school job opportunities, there's always so much that can be done in the school. For example, at Whitney Young, the students clean the lunchroom at the end of, once all the lunch periods are done. So their jobs are to wipe off the tables and to push 4 chairs into each table and move on to the next one. They do mail delivery, so we get the U.S. bin of mail, and they work on looking for the names in the mailboxes in the office and putting that mail away into the right boxes, and then also delivering it. So we've set up a mail service we have 3 buildings and 3 floors. Sometimes people are really far away from their mailbox. Can we deliver your mail to you before your division or your homeroom every day so that you can get important mail that you might need to give out to your students during that time? So I found that a lot of people are very supportive of wanting to help our students. They're all about it. Anytime that I put out that option, they're always ready to jump on board. Another thing, job exploration kind of goes with that too. Work environment preferences, utilizing different things to different visuals so that they can identify, I'd rather work in a quiet versus a loud place. I'd rather sit down than stand up. I'd rather work inside than outside, that kind of thing, so that they can tell what they like, and that can be composed into part of their visual resume. That's something that Bridget and I are just starting to work on right now, getting the students to kind of compile the information, and sometimes it's hard for them to identify preferences of things that they like versus their best friend that they've been in school with for 6 years, and I gotta like what he likes, what do you like? Like, you never want to stand up, and you're telling me you want to stand up because he's saying he wants to stand up. Like, I think you like sitting down. Don't you like sitting down? Yeah, sitting down. Okay, so sometimes it's that you have to kind of work with them to get to, what you kind of know what their preferences are, but you want them to be able to identify that independently and be able to speak that. Another thing with that is doing kind of interviews for jobs. So we do job exploration, a few different jobs a month, and I use the unique curriculum, which I'll get into shortly, but identifying, okay, here's 2 jobs, and we compare them side by side. I'd rather work at the car wash than work at the pet store. Okay, so I'm going to interview for the car wash job. Interviewing with myself or with Miss B is different than me bringing in somebody who they don't have as much contact with and asking the same question. So it's that scaffolding. It's trying to, okay, you can answer the questions with myself, with my assistant, with my student teacher, everyone you see on a daily basis. Okay, how about somebody you do see maybe once a day who you're a little bit more familiar with? Okay, how about somebody that you've never seen before, which we know would be the real life situation of job interview. So trying to scaffold them and get them to that point of being able to independently speak to people, that they're not familiar with. I put up a few goals up here. Actually, this is just one goal with a benchmark. So given instruction of familiar job and staff support, the student will complete an employment opportunity of mail delivery, mail sorting or filing, lunchroom cleanup, and completing a laundry cycle with 3 or less verbal prompts in 4 out of 5 employment skills sessions. So for this specific goal, we're focusing on one of those jobs each quarter. So when I break it down to the benchmark, I try to explain exactly what it is. So if they're given 4 to 8 mail folders and staff support, their mail delivery looks like this. They're knocking, they're greeting the staff, they're taking their mail out of their folder, and then they're using a closing to move on. So that it's a little bit more measurable for people who might not know, what that even is. Does that make sense? So then I would break that down for each quarter. So in the next quarter, if it's the lunchroom cleanup, that would be, they would acquire the towels, wipe down the table, put 4 chairs to a table, and then identify when it's time to move on to the next lunchroom kind of thing. Yeah.
I was going to ask, would you happen to have some sort of general template that you utilize with all the students? Like, this is what you need to answer in this amount of time? Just so.
In terms of like
a resource for us, just if we print it out and just use the same type of format.
So, and I think it's hard with, in terms of, so like for this, I do data on this specific thing in terms of prompts. So we do a lot of prompt counting because our students, like we introduce them, like for example, for these jobs, we introduce it and baseline it, you know, like maybe they start out, some of them might start out at like 10, 12 prompts per task, and then they get it down to, you know, whatever. This is one of, this example, this one, the student who's one of my higher students, so they, you know, usually require 3 by the end of that year. And so I utilize a prompting kind of thing. Are you talking about like data taking?
Well,
Is that what you're talking about?
just more of a, like an outline of when we are, like as teachers, when we're trying to make these goals, you know, questions that we need to answer, like information that we need to.
Okay, in terms of like how the goal is supposed to look like,
Exactly.
so you're saying, okay,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And I can kind of compile some stuff. I'll be at next week's presentation, so I can compile some stuff and take that as part of my handouts too. Yeah, I know what you're saying, because it is difficult for me, I felt like, to get to this point where I'm understanding, okay, so I need to say, this is their context, that they're given a familiar job in staff support as needed. So as I'm trying to get them as independent as possible, I never fully remove staff support at this point, you know, so I want to have that included in there, because I've had goals from students that'll say, they'll independently come up with their personal information, you know, 100% of the time, and there's, you know, there's no staff support included, there's no sort of idea for them to receive any help, you know, and they're not even getting it 50% of the time. And then you're looking at that goal as like the new teacher receiving that student saying, okay, how am I going to get the student to get as close to independence, you know, when they're not there? So I totally understand what you're saying. I'll put together something like that with, it's more like the conditions.
Yeah, exactly, because you want to follow the same format,
Yeah.
but of course, each goal is going to be subjective.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely a good idea. I'll put that together in my handouts too. So I just try to really give some examples of goals that you guys can kind of take back, you know, to your schools with anybody who might want to utilize these. This is for personal information, like I was saying, so name, age, birthday, address, phone number, or the 4 or less times. I always try to do out of 4 to 5 employment skills. So if you have 1 time of employment skills a day, so you've got 5 days a week, so you're hoping that they're doing that with 4 of those 5 days a week. Assuming they may have an off day, you know, maybe they're absent and they're getting it the 4 out of the 5 days, then they're still able to meet that goal. So different things like that, and that kind of, then I would use different formats, you know, to kind of get that. Something we've been working on is having them do their personal information on a format they're familiar with, and then one they're not, so that they can recognize sight word for name, you know, and we use a visual with it right now, taking away the visual so that they know the word name, they write their name. Address, picture of a house, taking away the picture of the house so hopefully they start recognizing that word. Vocational training, kind of like what we were talking about. For the lower end, it could be categorizing, sorting, separating. That could even be during vocational training at Easter Seals, we did a lot of PEX picture sorting. What's winter clothes look like for summer clothes? What are fruits versus vegetables? Like taking it to that basic level of kind of discrete training and then moving it on to more multi-step tasks. At Whitney Young, we do a lot of clerical skills. Something we've done is ask our teachers if they would like our students to make them copies. So I have a form they fill out. I created folders for all of them with their names on it. They put their folder outside of our room, and it's a 2-day turnover for copies. So there's a spot. Do you want it double-sided? Do you want it collated? Do you want it stapled? And the teachers love it. They reach out to us like crazy because, of course, you have copies. You want to, you know, you need to make all the time. And our students are like, we got a job, you know. And when we had a lull for a few days, like, where's our copies? You know, did we not do a good enough job? We're not getting requested for copies. So it's, you know, things like that. They feel really important. They love it. They love delivering it. You know, they show up at the door with the folder. They're all excited. Something like that. That's totally useful. A total real life thing, and people within our building really appreciate it. Alphabetizing and filing, that's another real life skill that we utilize within our school and that people need. It does require letter recognition. It's something that we struggle with all the time with mail. Names that look the same. There's a lot of M's out there, you know, like how can we, if there's MC,
like 7 MCs.
Yeah, how can we move it to the next level, you know? It's really a lot of scaffolding, and it's a hard thing to teach, and you know, once you get them and they're 18, 19, 20 years old, and they don't have that letter recognition, okay, how can they still participate when they don't have that skill? So that's just some ideas from vocational training. A goal example up here is kind of like what I do for the jobs, break down the clerical tasks. So one quarter they're working on typing, the next one copying, the next one collating, the next one alphabetizing. So then I would break that down, look at the benchmark like they did with the unemployment goal and say, what does that copying look like? Taking the paper, putting it in the copier, pressing the number, and starting it off, and then putting it back into the folder, things like that. And that can look like anything with the varied types. I try to work, kind of hone in on a specific skill per quarter so that we're really focusing on that versus I'm trying to get all 4 of them down to a certain number of prompts in 1 quarter, if that makes sense. And we're always working on all 4 of them simultaneously, if that makes sense, but we're honing in on 1 per quarter to really get the prompts down on. Here's another example, just more of a basic. If they're working on a 3 to 5 step vocational task, you're getting the prompting down to 6 or less verbal prompts. So then for that goal, it might look like we started with 10 and it goes down from there, kind of thing. And really vocational, I've seen a lot of vocational goals that include like multi-step directions, and that can kind of be applied to so many different tasks. Community-based instruction, here's another one, and like I said, this is not one of those drop-down goal areas in post-secondary, but it is really important, and I'm finding it's so important to the student success of generalizing those skills that we're working on in the classroom. Safety science instruction, travel training, community outings, grocery shopping, purchasing, manners, and social skills. There are so many things that can go into the community-based instruction. I've listed down there Christine Turner. She's somebody who graduated with me in the Learning Behavior Specialist program. She now works for CPS as the Community-Based Instruction Coordinator. And so her job is travel training. So if you're in CPS and you have students you've identified that can potentially take CTA independently, she's your girl. She'll send somebody out to your school, they'll meet with the student, they'll identify if they meet the basic criteria, and then go on to the next from there. They have hired travel trainers this year to go around to every school, and we have our own travel trainer that we share with other schools, and she'll come in and work with the students. She might give a presentation like this and talk about safety signs and strangers and street crossings and things like that. She'll also go into the community with us and take us on the CTA, provide us with the cards, things like that. You know, so much goes into when you're out in the community. Bridget can attest to this. We practice all the time. What it would be like when you're checking out at the grocery. So if you have $10, what can you buy? And then you get to the checkout, and we're doing so much modeling with it. We do it in the classroom all the time. And then we get to Target, and we're staring at the woman, and she's saying hi, and we're not saying anything, and nobody knows what to do, and you know, it happens all the time. And we like got it so down pat in the room. We're like, we're ready. Let's go to Target, and we get there, and we fall apart. We do it all the time. We go to Target every week, and we still can't make it. So it's really just trying to get them out there. I tend to do communication social goal for community-based because it's so difficult for them to understand how to speak with someone they don't know. You know, a lot of them have quiet voices as it is. They don't tend to project, and they really have shutdown type behaviors when they get out around people that they're not familiar with. Yes.
Before going to Target, have you guys like formulated a relationship with Target, like letting them know that you're going to be showing up, or is it something more that is just, hey, we're going to Target? Yeah,
so both. So when we go to Target, they do know us here. So Target is very close to Whitney Young. It's about 2 blocks. They see regular ed students, teachers there like all day. They're very familiar. We're one of the special ed groups that comes once a week, like pretty regularly. I've had repeat cashiers, and I try, like, you know, they're very patient with us. I've never had anybody, you know, try to rush us on with the communication. They're very patient to waiting for prompting for the students to reply on their own. We've never said like, okay, we need to go back to the specific person because they're really good with their kids. I think it's super important to get them, you know, to experience all different types of people, because you know, you never know if they're going to get somebody who's short with them who doesn't have the time. You know, they've got the line out the door that happens to us at Dunkin' Donuts sometimes. I mean, there's a line out the door, and we're trying to get the kid to request chocolate donut. You know, I'm like, he knows he wants it. Like, I know he wants it, and there's, you know, 10 people behind us waiting to get their coffee, and he just can't spit out chocolate donut. You know, I'm like, okay, well, and then I break it down to the 2 choices. Were you thinking vanilla or chocolate? You know, and try to like, you know, try to get them to go on with that. But I think it's super important for them to be thrown in those real life. I mean, obviously we're there to support, but for the people to act how they would act, you know,
yeah, definitely.
in any other situation.
My follow-up question, because they will be having to experience this on their own, and they will have to deal with people who aren't always going to be as patient as we are.
Absolutely.
Is that something you guys practice in
Oh,
his
yeah.
house as well?
Oh yeah, we practice the pressure on, let's go, what do you want off the menu? Come on, what do you want the burger or do you not? Do you want the shit? And they're like, this is gonna happen, you're at McDonald's and there's 10 people in line. We need your order now, you know? So we put the pressure on them so that they understand how that could look, you know? And it's so hard, like I said, until you get out into the community and get them. It's even just being in a different place, you know, like we're in Target and we're staring around, you know, and everything's red and we're like, I want the sunglasses, you know. I'm like, okay, back to our picture list. Like, well, what are we here to get? Oh, eggs. Okay. And here we are back on our track. So it's definitely, everything is a learning experience. We learn something new every time we go out. But really just trying to get the students to have as much community experience. And I have students who travel independently within their community because they have a smaller community and they're well known by some of the people, and they can go to their local store, they get their haircut by themselves, and they come back because they're in a safe community and the people know them. And that's great, and I love to hear that from parents, but when they get to Target, when they can't exchange a verbal hello with the cashier, then that's that skill that they have in their communities and translating to a different community. So really just trying to generalize. And that's why I think, too, it's really important to talk to parents and see what's going on. Like, I had no idea that student was traveling independently in their community until I heard it from the mom. And I'm like, okay, well, I love to hear that they have that skill, there, even though I'm not seeing it at school, because I know, that it's possible, kind of thing. Goal examples, like I said, this is a communication goal. So it might be focusing on the greeting for a quarter, the exchange. The exchange would be, can I help you with something? How are you doing today? Expressing that they need help or saying thank you, things like that. And a closing with that person. So I say in a variety of community settings so that we try to get out to those various settings, even in their work situations as well. Just really focusing on communicating with people. And that you could provide as much scaffolding as you need in there. Maybe that's including the PECS visual prompts that they rely on to actually make that communication, and that's totally fine. At Easter Seals, I would have them request and pull off the Velcro piece and put it on the note card. It was like one of these things on a little quick binder, really quick rim binder, small thing, and they would say, I'm feeling good, and they might show that to the person, and that's their communication, that's where they're at, and that works, so just kind of meeting them where they're at. Independent living skills. So this is, like I was saying, a lot of household stuff, meal planning, cooking, daily hygiene routine. Banking can fall into this one if you don't have the financial literacy option. All leisure skills, which can sometimes be a difficult thing for our students to identify their leisure skills and what they want to do, which is a really important skill to implement. And I think we kind of often look that over, like, oh, they do what they want at home. Like that they have leisure skills, making sure that they can identify what those leisure skills are. Goal example for that, here's a visual recipe one. So this is about cooking, so completing a 6 to 10 step recipe. What I have, a sample lesson plan and PowerPoint that I have could go along with this goal 100%, and that's just kind of making it's a cooking lesson. So I've included the PowerPoints that I would put up there, including the rules, the visual recipe, the recipe review for assessment, and a few different versions of the recipe review. This one is a similar goal, but this is given the recipe. So once you've identified the recipe you're making, they have to go they have to create the list, they have to budget for the items, they actually have to go shopping and then make it. So that's the more advanced level. If your student, you've got them down with that 6 to 10 step recipe, they're doing it independently. Let's move on to, can they create the list, budget for the items, go shopping and make that, and focus on one of those per quarter. So that's, we're doing that every time, as a class. So if your student's at that level, that they can kind of be doing some of these skills more independently, put all of them in there and have them work on that. And you can increase the recipe steps and make it more difficult, as they're getting it piece by piece. So here's some post-secondary resources. I feel that right now the hardest part is placing the students in a program once they leave, and I'll hear that from people over and over and over again. We've had a lot of good luck with community service options, and that's this number and website serves this area too. This specific neighborhood, I should say. They're very quick to respond back and open cases for students. Their turnover in terms of placing them in a program isn't as quick, but they'll take them under their wing, really quickly open a case for them and start contacting agencies. I put up here like the DRS and the DHS link. The community service options falls under DHS and DRS, so if you were to call them, they would take you to the community service options. This link here is really specific for understanding the PUNS list. That's a really big struggle I have with parents too, getting their students on the PUNS list. There's a long wait list, and that's really where they're getting their meat of funding from, so it's really important that they get on that list. If they're referred to community service options, they will take them down that road too. Yes.
Sorry, what is PUNS?
I'm not sure what the name, what it stands for off the top of my head. I don't know if anybody knows, but that's where the funding is coming from. So when they're leaving the school system and they're going to, maybe they're going to Ray Graham, some service post-school, that's where the government funding comes from to get them to that school. So it might also provide them with transportation from home to that program. It provides the money that is going into them receiving those services, if that makes sense. So it's really important that they get on that list, and it seems to be a huge misstep all the time, and we're getting to 21 and they're not on the list, and now there is a 2 to 3 year waiting list, and now they don't have funding to go into that program, and their parents often cannot provide that funding out of pocket, which is totally understandable because they are, the programs are very expensive. So I found that going through community service options will take them through all of those. In our IEP meetings, I'll give them usually this number to call for community service options, and then the handout about the PUNS list, so that the parents understand, okay, this is the most important thing, going forward, is that we get them on this list and that you call this agency. I can't stress that enough. I'll send home multiple copies in every language that we need. Like, this is the most important thing. Because when it comes down to it, like I said, the worst thing is that they leave the school and they sit at home, until they find a placement, or maybe they don't find a placement at all. So those service options, like I said, is for this area. It's the area of my school as well. There are different community service options, phone numbers and addresses for different areas of the city. So if you are, not from this area, you're not working in this area, if you go under DHS and DRS, the website, they'll have you type in your zip code, and then that will drop down a link and tell you what agency serves your population. So just as, so you know that one might not be the one that services your area. It is this one, and Pilsen, and where I work as well. I put up the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities as well. Really important with employment for people with disabilities. If your students are able to potentially independently work or work in supported employment, they're really big with that. Not as much for finding living arrangements, so that's why I put up the Access Living. They've definitely been hands down the best agency that I've worked with in terms of getting students. I find that most of my families want the students to live with them. I have a brother with a disability, and I try to remind my families that my parents are in their 70s now, and my brothers lived with them their whole life, and now finally just got placed into a SILA, because my parents always said, oh, we want them to be happy, we want them to live at home, and at some point they're going to be older, and it's going to be difficult for them to take care of their child, and they'll say, oh, they'll live with a sister or brother, we don't want anything to happen to them. I'm just trying to reassure them that there are other options out there. I know it sounds difficult to say, I'm going to, the child I've taken care of my whole life, and I'm going to let them live somewhere else, and it's totally difficult. And they actually provide a lot of support for that too, for the families, but just giving them those options, so maybe if 10 years down the road they finally decide that, maybe they're going to look into something, they at least have somewhere to go. Any questions on that, or any other resources that you have that you guys utilize at all? It's the hardest part, I feel like, is finding the resources.
And it's hard for us because we have so few kids with low incidence disabilities. Charter schools, historically don't have a lot of kids with low incidence disabilities, but we try to do very much what you're trying to do. Yeah. But as I'm listening to you, one of the things I appreciate so much is we've really put so much more into this. I mean, CPS hired 6 or 8 new people this year. They had 3 when ALA was there, and now they've hired like 8 more people. So they're really giving it more attention, and for all the right reasons. Quality of life being so important, that individuals with these more significant disabilities can really have a good quality of life if we are as intentional as you're being around doing this stuff.
stuff.
Definitely. It's definitely the hardest area. I found that it's been ignored for so long, and now finally we're talking about it, and the state is mandating that we're providing the services, so now we're trying to really step it up, you know, and it can be difficult to find these services. So funding, this is the biggest thing. It's a struggle. Yes.
I just want to say for time's
Yes.
sake, if you could review this quick, but I think
Yeah.
the example is what people really want to hear about.
Okay, cool. The lesson plan, you mean?
Yeah, what you
cool.
have handed out, so.
Sure. Real quick, I'll just go through this because funding I know is really important and really difficult in CPS. That's our biggest barrier. It's just finding the funding. I listed a few grant websites. So the special education grants in Illinois and the ISP special education grant information. So the special education grants is not an ISP website, but it is a grant watch for all specialized grants. So if you just go there, you can find endless grants, all specific to students with disabilities. We got a $2,000 grant from, that was listed on there, from a casino that wanted to provide $2,000 for a transition program. And we got it, and we bought a stove or a refrigerator, a microwave, like a whole like living suite with that. And we still have extra money. The ISB special education grants and the ISB funding opportunity. So the one is a grant site, and the other one is an actual funding opportunity. So they're a little bit different. Those are two really good websites to look at. You never know what's going to pop up on there. You never know what type of, they're often looking either for a specific area of the city or a specific demographic that they're looking to fund. And I'm sorry, it's not just the city, but it could be a specific area in Illinois. These are, I found, the most helpful websites for grants, and that's always going to be the struggle is funding. You know, just how can we get the kids in the community if we don't have money to buy groceries? Things like that. We have, at Whitney Young, we have a grant system within our school called and it might be parents or families that are willing to donate things, and so we've gotten Target gift cards through parents who are willing to donate for our program, or even donate food for our students to cook, things like that. And then Donors Choose, I'm sure a lot of you guys know about that. It can be more difficult to get money that way, but it is a viable option when I do use Donors Choose as well. But definitely check out those grant options and you know, spread those around to people that you know.
I think Donors Choose is like the best website if you have a project with materials you need,
like actual
and you make a
materials.
case like this is something we want to do, and we need these materials, like a camera or whatever it is, and it's wonderful. It's a really easy way. You don't have to do this elaborate grant writing that some of the other programs.
You can post it on Facebook, and people who know people will get it. I've gotten an iPad, an Apple TV system, and a TV doing that, and it's, you know, so easy, you know, and I'll show how my students are using it, and it's like, that was the easiest thing I've done. So just considering, it takes a little bit of time to set up the Donors Choose page, but once you get yours going, totally worth it. And then I just listed these resources. You can look at those at your leisure. They're just transition specific resources, and at the bottom is the unique curriculum, which is also news to you. That's what I use for my transition and what Young uses. It is a subscription base, so you do have to pay for that, so that's another thing I'll request grant money for, to get that subscription year to year. We have one subscription and we share it within our department, so it works that well. But I've found endless amounts of resources on the unique curriculum. So this is just a quick thing that I, you know, kind of put together for you guys in terms of, it's a really detailed lesson plan. I absolutely do not make this detail of a lesson plan for every single lesson every day. And that would be difficult to do, you guys understand that. But this is like really specific. Where am I getting the goals from? What are they going to outcome, you know, what are the outcomes for this? How is it going to look like? What are the steps? That kind of thing. When I do, we cook once a week at our school. So once we, you know, the students know it's coming. It's usually Friday, Thursday or Friday. We've planned. We bought the groceries. You know, we had to go to Target. We had to do the whole shebang. I don't let them cook if they can't like come up with the stuff on their own. You know, because then to me it's like, I just got everything for you, and now here we are. You know, like I'm trying to get them to learn. We have to have money. Then we have to budget. Then we have to plan. We have to make a list. What do we need? All that stuff. I allow them to pick what they want to cook every week. So we're very democratic in the room. There's a lot of big ideas. There's a lot of voting. We vote on everything all the time. So we'll pick 2 ideas. We'll put them up there with the visuals and the pictures. Okay, like this past week it was macaroni and cheese. And what was the other one? I don't remember. Macaroni and cheese and French toast, because those two
Oh,
things
French.
go together. And those are just like,
Well,
yes,
it's always like-
it's whatever they come up
Or
with,
brownies,
like,
or
they
like
have to be motivated, you know, so it's whatever they want. So it was mac and cheese and French toast, and it got down to the last vote, and we picked mac and cheese somehow, so.
But then we had to vote on which box.
Then there was a few different types of mac and cheese. There was Kraft, there was Roundy's, so then we got it down to Roundy's mac and cheese somehow. That's voting on everything. So they just want to feel like they have a voice, and they do. So that's another side note, is how we get to that. So it's always whatever they want to make, and that's how we do it. We always start off with the kitchen rules. So these are just Kex made. I just took the visuals off Kex and put them out. So we go through them every single time we cook. No matter what, even if we've done it 100 times, we go through these, because there's always somebody who isn't staying in their seat, who isn't asking for help, who's touching their hair and their mouth and everything, and then trying to touch the Rice Krispies or whatever, you know, so we're always going through that. I do my own visual recipes. I have some books. PCI does a lot of visual recipes. Look and Cook and Learn to Cook are two other good ones. It's so easy off Google to just say, you'd be shocked what you could find spreading jelly on toast, and you'll find, I mean, endless pictures. It's crazy. It takes a minute, but once you have these, you can recycle them and reuse them. You know, year to year, you're always going to have somebody who wants to make toast and jelly, you know, or mac and cheese or peanut butter and jelly, whatever it is. So I kind of just make these and save them, and then I'll reuse them. So these are all literally just pictures off the internet. I try to get the real pictures of, we shop at Target, so I try to put up our Target brand things, because that's usually what we buy, so that they're understanding what they're getting. When we do the assessment later that I'll show you, we often use different pictures to help with that generalizing. But this is really just a basic. It's not every single step you could ever see in your whole life, but you've got to kind of break it down as well as you can without being 10 pages of, you know, a visual recipe. So that's just an example of toast and jelly. That's one of the more basic ones. You know, we start simple and then we try to go from there. Here's a recipe review. This is just an example of one of the more basic reviews you can do as an assessment. What do we make? Choose from 3 pictures. What ingredients do we use? This one has 2 ingredients, so that's a little tricky. Sometimes they're looking for only one thing. What kitchen items did we use? So you could put a stove, a microwave, blender in there. We just put the plate and the knife because we didn't actually use any appliances. Did you like it? Yes, no, I don't know. Just so that they can identify their preferences. Yeah, I don't know. And those change too, like even here, the yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down, just different ways for them to express and identify that this means yes, this means no, and so on. This one is a little bit more complex. So this is circle the items. So these are some of the pictures that they saw in their visual recipe. This is for mac and cheese, I think, from this week. So this is a different recipe. So I didn't include the steps. I should have put a picture. Maybe they'll look kind of like this. So we would have cards like this that would be listed, 4 of those, 4 pictures. They have to put, so they'll cut them out, or we'll cut them out for them depending on time, and they have to sequence them in the right order. So that's a little bit more difficult skill than just saying, like, this is what we made, this is what we used, actually sequencing them. And it can be really difficult for them to identify the sequence of things.
I'll say like, oh, so we stirred it up before we put the noodles in the pot sometimes, because like I feel like they're not.
Yeah,
they're not because we just started doing it like this, so they're like, sure. I don't know that they really understand, and then they'll be like, no, and I'm like, okay,
yeah, that's what you're saying, you know, and then they'll often.
Yeah.
So then we'll note that too, that wasn't independent. We've got students who can look at this, cut them out, paste them independent, and like done in a minute. And we've got students who are like barely hanging on of the steps. So we'll note that too, you know, like completed, maybe he did get 1 through 4 correct, but it was with this many verbal prompts or physical prompts, so that we are just able to identify kind of where they're at. And then again, would you like it? Yes or no? So just another example of how to do it. This is something that Bridget started doing. So I do this with the cleanup. I think you'll see it in the PowerPoint of, we usually put the students' pictures. I took out for, you know, very specific reasons, took out their photos, but we put their beautiful faces in there, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm stirring it.
We had 2 pages, and they were like, where's my picture?
Yeah,
everyone who was on the second page was like,
where's my job?
I was like,
Like, you're on the second page, it's okay, we didn't forget about you, you know, like, they're like always like, okay, so we're gonna do, you know, and it's like, this is my big moment, I get to put the butter and milk in, like, this is it, you know. and they wait all the time for their job. So like once it's finished, they check it off. We do that same kind of thing when we go to Target. We put, you know, different people are responsible for getting different things. Once we've got it, we check it off. So they come with their little clipboards to Target, you know, like their little employees are checking things off and making sure we got it all. So this is just another way to keep them engaged, making sure they know where we're at in the steps. This is another kind of visual recipe way to do it. So we are not doing one like this when we're doing that checklist one. This is just a different way to do the visual recipe. So we'll assign them a picture or a specific step, and then they check it off. I forgot what was I going to say. And somebody have one of these. Just let me. I think. So this is another thing. So if after we do the actual cooking activity, before we do our recipe review, I'll do a cleanup chart. So again, I put their faces in it. So this is what they're doing, and they're either clearing the table, maybe they're wiping it down, maybe they're wiping down the chairs, maybe they're washing the dishes, so that they have a different job that's labeled with their picture too, and then that'll go on the board. So once we're actually done cooking and eating, before we get the papers out, you know, there's cheese everywhere, we clean up and take care of that side of it, and then we do their assessment. So they would see my pictures lined up with wiping the chairs. Okay, so I'm going to go get the wipes and start wiping the chairs. So once they kind of have this routine down, they really understand, you know, what to do and what the next step is. They know to start to cook, we got to push the chairs together and get the wipes to clean off the tables, you know. So it's just really about, they'll start initiating things independently, which is awesome to see because we always include every step, but sometimes they don't need it anymore, you know, so it's nice to see them getting independent. So feel free to take that back to anyone, you know, who you feel might benefit from it, just some ideas of how to cook. And for a while we didn't have a stove before we got the grant money. We didn't have a stove or a refrigerator or a microwave, and we still cooked all first semester. You know, like there are things you can do, you know, it doesn't all have to be, you know, utilizing those appliances. So if you don't have those available to you, you can still get it done. There's a lot of stuff you can do. Any questions about, you know, anything? And you know, feel free. I was gonna give out my email if you guys wanted to give my emails to anyone who is interested in transition, who had questions. They can feel free to email me, and I can always email them, you know, some documents and things that we do so that they can kind of get an idea. My email is lies. I'm sorry. I'm gonna give you my CPS one. No, lies. It's KN Johnson, JOHNSON, the number 2, and that's at cps.edu. So feel free to pass on my email to anybody, and also like these documents I can electronically send them. It's kind of easier to actually have that. If you really wanted to use the kitchen rolls, you can just put them up there, you know, and have it electronically. So feel free to spread my email to people. It's nice to kind of get a transition like group of people together who will feel for each other and if we struggle and help each other with ideas. You know, it's nice. It's awesome to have Bridget. She's got totally different ideas that I haven't thought of that she's bringing in. You know, just being back in school and, you know, being exposed to other educators. I think it's really awesome to be able to bounce ideas off other educators and professionals and just, you know, try to help each other out.
Will you send me the PowerPoint?
Sure thing. I'd love to. Yeah.
You know, when you're teaching self-determination skills, sometimes research is just like, yes, this is good to do for students. And sometimes it's more practice-based or application-based, something that teachers can use. Do you have any resources that we could use in our classrooms that are sort of related to self-determination skills?
Yeah, I could definitely email some out. Part of my whole thesis was self-determination, so I could, if you want to reach out to me via email, I can send some things to you, absolutely. And I think, like I said, that's one of the hardest things I think to do, because in special ed, they're so used to us doing so much. We do everything for them, you know, and I'm like, I want to do everything for you, I love you, you know, but to back off and say, you've got to start doing these things on your own, and how can you drive yourself, you know, to continue on. So I hands down think that's one of the hardest, but I'd love to send all the information I have to you. Hopefully you utilize it. Anything else? Any other questions?
Thank you very much.